All right, so we're going to start off with the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is going to be located at the base of the brain and is roughly the size of a pea. Super, super tiny. This tiny little gland is responsible for secreting 8 different hormones. It's going to secrete growth hormone, prolactin, oxytocin, thyroid stimulating hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, antidiuretic hormone, and so on. It's going to consist of 2 lobes, an anterior lobe and a posterior lobe. The anterior lobe is going to be the circulatory connection to the hypothalamus, and the posterior is going to have the neural connection to the hypothalamus. The anterior pituitary is connected to the hypothalamus, which synthesizes and secretes releasing and inhibiting hormones. So releasing hormones stimulate hormone secretion in stimulates hormone secretion by the anterior pituitary. Inhibiting hormones, interestingly enough, inhibit hormone secretion by the anterior pituitary. So basically, it's going to regulate the hypothalamus. 2 hormones, the hypothalamus, regulate the synthesis and release of growth hormone. So there's growth hormone releasing hormone that stimulates the release of growth hormone, and growth hormone inhibiting hormone, which inhibits the release of growth hormone. Here is a great diagram that's going to kind of summarize everything we talked about, and it's going to show you which hormones are secreted by which region of the pituitary gland and how these connections are made with the hypothalamus. And so spend a little bit of time looking at this because it's really going to help cement the link between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. So here's some more words so you can help write down everything I just said. The anterior lobe is going to have 2 hormones of the hypothalamus regulate the synthesis and release of growth hormone. Growth hormone stimulates the rate of cell division and helps increase cell size. This is primarily going to target cells including bone, muscle, and cartilage. Growth hormones Yes, sorry, I was just about to repeat myself about growth hormone. There are other hormones that are secreted by the anterior lobe, but I want to pause for just a moment and talk about some homeostatic imbalances associated with growth hormone. There are a few. The first is gigantism. Gigantism is abnormally high production of growth hormone in childhood. So while the bones are still capable of lengthening, there's an overproduction of growth hormone, which is going to cause elongated features and extreme growth. Acromegaly is when there are extremely high levels of growth hormone in adulthood. At this point, bones will thicken, but they're not going to lengthen. And so we're going to see very different features with acromegaly. There's also pituitary dwarfism. This is where there's actually an insufficient production of growth hormone in childhood. And by contrast to other forms of dwarfism, it can be treated by administering growth hormone in childhood. I had a close friend through all of elementary school, middle, and high school who suffered from pituitary dwarfism. So she had to take daily injections of growth hormone to allow her to grow at a relatively normal rate. She was still pretty short. I don't think she ever grew past 4'10", but still she was able to reach that height because of the daily injections of growth hormone while she was still developing and growing. There are other hormones that are going to be involved or regulated by the hypothalamus. But I'm actually going to let this summary video sort of summarize everything we need to know about the hypothalamus and pituitary gland. So here you go.
Together, the hypothalamus and pituitary gland coordinate the action of many key hormones for the endocrine system. Neurosecretory cells of the hypothalamus control the release of hormones by the pituitary. The green cell represents the cells in the hypothalamus that control the anterior pituitary, while the orange cell represents the cells in the hypothalamus that control the posterior pituitary. Releasing hormones produced by the green neurosecretory cell are released near a capillary bed in the lower hypothalamus. Here, they enter the bloodstream and travel a short distance to a capillary bed in the anterior pituitary, where they diffuse out among the cells. Cells with receptors for the releasing hormone will be stimulated to secrete their own hormone. The newly released anterior pituitary hormone will diffuse into the bloodstream and be carried to a distant site where it can exert its effect. The anterior pituitary secretes many different hormones. Two in particular function differently in the two sexes: follicle-stimulating hormones, FSH, and luteinizing hormones, LH. In males, FSH stimulates sperm production, and LH stimulates testosterone production. In females, FSH stimulates egg cell development, and LH stimulates the release of an egg cell during ovulation. The posterior pituitary has no hormone-producing cells. The hormones oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone are produced by neurosecretory cells in the hypothalamus and transported to the posterior pituitary. There, they diffuse directly into the bloodstream and are carried to distant tissues where they exert their effects.